by public demand. Kamusta kayo dyan, everyone? Here we are, back again together, RNR. Here we are, RNR. Kamusta kayo dyan, Secretary Ronaldo Llamas?
Kamusta, Big R?
Yan, na-miss ka namin.
Big R, kamusta ang kwan mo? Preparation for Christmas. Dami mo
Ayan.
sigurong early na regalo, no?
Yun nga tatabi na natin mga regalo para sa'yo. May utang na naman ako sa'yo. Ano, Ronald, how it comes? Kung maraming regalo, marami rin utang. Kailangan ibalik din yan. Alam mo naman ng Ilocano style.
Kami mga karaniwan tao, dito lang kami sa baba. No, naghihintay ng mga grasya galing sa taas. Nag-aantay ng mugs, t-shirts, no? Okay na kami ron.
Guys, let's be clear ang hindi niyo pa nakikita yung gwapo natin guest, pero medyo socialin na hotel yata ang sinistay niya ngayon. Hindi natin sabihin sa.
Hindi, mga kwalan to, pa 4-star.
May mga hanging ano pa dyan. Parang Scandinavian style. Hotel na. Parang kilala ko yung hotel na. May reputation daw yung mga nag-check.
Hindi ito katulad ng mga hotels po sa Singapore, sa Malaysia, no, sa Europe, no. Ito dito lang sa mga gilid-gilid to.
Ronald, para sa bayan, service para sa bayan lahat yan. Bayad ng ibang mga gobyerno in this Philippines. Yung mga sponsored events. Alright, ito. Dami natin pag-usapan. Let's first start, of course, with what has been dominating the news and of course also been a big concern for all of us. So doble ang nangyari, no? So sa isang banda, binuli itong China, winotter cannon nila, itong resupply vessels natin. At doon pa si Bronner, yung military chief natin. So my goodness, kung na-injury yan or something, medyo ibang usapan yan. I wonder if the Chinese did it intentionally, what they're trying to do. But pangalawa, just as I was updating with what is happening dito sa situation nila General Bronner and yung grabe mga higanteng water cannoning vessels nila, nakita ko yung update ng kaibigan natin, si Bernabe, no? From Al Jazeera, na bumalik. Nag-turn around ang itong Christmas convoy natin, which is something you and I have been talking about. Now, of course, may mga nainis na kasama ko na sabi nila, bakit ganun ang nangyayari? Di sila pinaprotektahan kasi na-shadow sila ng 4 vessels from China. So ako nag-comment ako, me being me, nasaan yung, where on earth is our people? So immediately nag-respond, I think wala pang literally 1 minute, nag-respond si Commodore J. Tarilla ng Philippine Coast Guard with satellite footage and all, saying na actually andun kami, we were there and we were encouraging them to stay their course, but mukhang yung kapitan ng itong convoy na ito decided that the risk perhaps was too much. So I have the government side and I reflected that on my writings. Shinare ko rin yan, nag-thank you rin ako kay Commodore J. Tarilla. But for the sake of fairness, what is the other side of the story? Because Ronald, you have been part of the organization of this special historic convoy.
Ako naman, papanood ko lang sa mga balita at saka sa mga statements, parang ang daming lumabas ng mga balita, no? At saka generally very positive naman, no? Pero sabi mo nga kanina, nagsimula yan dun sa Scarborough the day before na yung mga BIFAR vessels ay winatter cannon. At yung mga mangisda, pati yung mga mangisda winatter cannon tinamaan sila dahil yung BIFAR ay magdadala ng supplies at saka gasoline dun sa mga mangisda sa Scarborough, sa Baho de Masinloc, no? Very innocent yung operations na yun, no? BIFAR, hindi man lang Coast Guard, hindi man lang Philippine Navy, just bringing food, other supplies, at saka mga gasolina sa mga mangisda nung sila ay binomba. At mukhang ang balita ko, for the first time, may ginamit na parang mga sonic weapons. Yung nakakabingi pang drive away ng mga mangingisda at saka mga BIFAR, no? Of course, kailangan ng confirmation diyan, pero medyo scaling up 'yan, no? At after niyan, sa Ayungin naman, yung supply ship na na-damage, na nag-stall na, kaya kinakailangang i-tow ng mga Coast Guard vessels palayo ng Ayungin. Yun nga yung nabanggit mo na nandun pala si Chief of Staff Browner, no? Kaya nga, alam ko, itong Christmas convoy, initially meron silang 3 Coast Guard na escort. Yung 2, kinakailangan mag-rush sa Ayungin para tulungan supply ship na damage at hindi na makaandar.
So
So ang
related yung dalawa. Okay, okay.
yes, so
Right
naiwan dun
relationship.
sa Christmas convoy isang Coast Guard. Bagaman sabi nga ng Coast Guard, meron namang dalawang Navy na medyo malayo, no? Ang alam ko ang nangyari dito ay papasok pa lang sila sa Sabina Reef ba yun? Or Sabina Shoal, ay
Right.
biglang may nakita silang dalawang Chinese Navy warships. Hindi Coast Guard, warships, battleships, no? At dalawang Chinese Coast Guard. Isa rin ay parang supply vessel, no? At mabilis, no? More than 21, 22 knots per hour. Yung Christmas convoy ay 10 knots. So yung Chinese warships umiikot sa kanila. Iniikutan sila, no? At nakita mo naman sa front page ng Inquirer, pumagitna yung Chinese Coast Guard sa gitna nung Christmas convoy vessel at saka yung Philippine Coast Guard. Doon na kinabahan yung captain nung Christmas convoy vessel dahil you have to understand, hindi naman kasi ito Coast Guard, hindi ito Navy. This is a first time captain na napunta sa lugar na yon, no? With a training ship, medyo malaki pero training ship, no? Na kaya medyo kinabahan at nagulat siya dahil medyo dumidilim na. At ang tingin niya, yung bilis ng Chinese warships at saka Coast Guard, kung gagawa ng ganyong maneuvers, baka magbungguan sila. No, hindi siya sanay sa ganong klaseng gitgitan, no? Kahit sinabihan siya nung Philippine Coast Guard na kumaliwa ka para magmamaneuver kami sa gitna mo at saka nung Chinese Coast Guard at saka warship, hindi siya sanay sa ganon. So kinabahan siya. At saka syempre, ang kanyang unang tungkulin ay protektahan yung kanyang barko at yung mga nandun sa barko na mga supporters ng atin ito at yung kanilang mga dala-dala mga donations. Kaya yun yung nangyari na tama naman yung sabi ni Coast Guard spokesperson Tariela na gusto sana nila na mag-proceed pero yung private boat captain ay kinabahan na dahil hindi nga siya sanay sa ganung klaseng mga maneuvers nitong Chinese warships. Hindi ito Chinese militia, no? Chinese warships, dalawa, at dalawang Chinese Coast Guard. No? Yun yung nangyari. Pero yung isang vessel ng atin ito, nakalusot. Yung mas maliit. Dumaan sila dun sa mas mababaw na dagat, kaya na hindi pwedeng puntahan ng mga Chinese warships at saka Coast Guard. Kaya nakalusot siya, nakaabot siya sa Lawak Island na nakapagbaba siya ng mga donations. No? Yung kalahati ng mga donations ay ibinigay sa Coast Guard at bahala na sila mag-distribute doon sa mga families nila at doon sa mga ibang mga fishermen doon sa lugar. No? Ganun yung alam kong nangyari doon sa mga nabasa ko na mga balita, both international at saka local. Pero galit na galit sila na ganun kalayo pa sa Ayungin, ay may dalawa ng warships. No, imagine mo malayo pa sa Ayungin, may dalawang warships na. These are not militia na usually nakakaharap ng ating Coast Guard. These are Chinese battleships, dalawa, na ang bibilis. Kaya kinabahan yung kapitan ng private vessel ng atin ito. No?
So
yun ang
full
nangyari.
intimidation tactic talaga yan. Kasi full intimidation tactic. So ito yung response ni Commodore Tariela sa akin. No? We were there, Richard, tagging me. The lead vessel is the Philippine Coast Guard. The one following from behind is Kapitan Oka. Oka ba? Is that how I pronounce it?
That's the name of the ship. No?
Oh, okay. Is behind it.
Kapitan Oka yung vessel. No?
Yes, the vessel coming from the right side of the convoy is the Chinese Coast Guard. So may pinakita siyang satellite imagery na pinost sa thread ko. It was the decision of the ship's captain, referring to Kapitan Oka, to go back despite our call to continue the mission. So that's why I wondered. I wanted to get also your side because hindi na ako nag-back and forth on that because I felt,
Tama yun. Tama yung sinabi ni
oh,
Kwan.
kasi baka mali ang lalabas na parang may sinisisi ako. I was just trying to clarify na
Tama yun. Tama yun.
nasan yung
No?
tao natin.
Oo.
So, ang nangyari
Actually,
dito,
partly dyan, dahil yung nangyari nga sa Scarborough, tapos yung nangyari sa Ayungin, nag-create na ng ganong klaseng fear eh. Di ba? Na hindi siya nangyari in a vacuum eh. May nangyaring build-up eh, papunta ron. No? Kaya nung nakaharap niya yung mga umiikot sa kanya, ng mga talagang ninervyos. No? Pero yung mga nakasakay sa boat, gusto magpatuloy. Gusto nila magpatuloy. No? Nakita ko yung mga video eh, dun sa ship eh, nung Kapitan Oka, sinasabi nung mga ating ito to continue, no, to proceed. Pero siyempre, yung kapitan na masusunod, bumalik siya, umikot siya, no? Dahil nga dun sa mga maneuvers, ang tingin niya ay delikado, no? Kung alam mo naman, in the high seas, pag tumutol yung mga sakay ng barko, ang tawag doon mutiny.
yeah, parang nangyari kay Magellan crossing the Pacific.
Oo, yung boat captain na masusunod, no?
Oo.
Doon sa
Martial law yan eh. Oo, martial law
Oo.
yan. Exactly.
Oo. Kahit sinasabihan siya ng Coast Guard, di na, magtago ka sa likod namin. Sinasabihan ng Coast Guard, pumagitna ka. Eh, syempre, hindi sanay yung boat captain eh. No? Hindi sanay yung boat captain sa ganyan. Eh. Mukhang wala siyang, first time niyang napunta sa lugar na yan, at first time man nakakita ng ganyang klaseng mga maneuvers. Doon siya kinabahan. Dahil sa bilis ng mga Chinese Navy battleships, tsaka Coast Guard, tingin niya kung magkamali ito ng ikot, bubunggo siya. I wouldn't know. Hindi ko alam yung mga ganyang klase mga maneuverings. Yun yung kanyang judgment call. But linawin natin yung mga nakasakay doon na atin ito, gusto magpatuloy. Gusto nila magpatuloy doon sa Ayungin. No? Medyo frustrated sila, pero nauunawaan nila yung kapitan. Kahit yung mga media na nakasakay sa boat, nauunawaan nila. Ang alam ko, nagmimisa si Father Robert. Nung nangyari yung maneuvers ng Chinese Navy warships, at saka Coast Guard. Nasa gitna sila ng mass nung nangyari yan. At natigil pansamantala daw yung mass, no, nung umikot yung vessel ng sinasakyan ng mga atin ito. No? Natigil si Father Robert. Ano nangyari? No? Nakita ko yung ilang mga video ng UNTV, yung ilang video ng ilang mga news outlets while it was happening. No? Very transparent yung mga pangyayari.
In plain sight, no. But that's my point, Ron. This is in plain sight, in your face intimidation by China. Magpadala ka ng mga higanteng barko na ganyan, and then knowing na siguro talaga mga civilians na, for all I know, baka may intel pa sila na hindi handa yung mga people in charge of this convoy, which of course, as you correctly point out, we don't want to gaslight ourselves here. Clearly, the provocation and the escalation, in fact, that's the term na ginamit ng mga kaibigan natin sa gobyerno, like USEC, National Security Council, Jonathan Malay, no? The term he uses, this is a provocation. Si Bronner ay galit na galit, diba? Kasi personally, he witnessed this, diba? So this is it. Ito yung quote niya, no? It's pure aggression. I personally witnessed how many times the big Chinese Coast Guard militia ships cut our path, they water cannon us, they bumped us, it's angering. So this is the other incident. But at the same time, meron ka pang incident na ginaganon lang yung ating civilian convoy. No? So ayon kay Jonathan Malay, this is a serious escalation on the part of the agents of the People's Republic of China. So these are very, very strong words that are coming out. Ang tanong ko ng Ronald dito is, of course, I'll go back to what I've been writing on this issue, my take on this issue, what Chinese are up to. But again, I'll try to play the devil's advocate, but isn't this the part you say na baka naman, to begin with, there should have been more preparations before this was done, and there should have been an anticipation that China will use some very serious intimidation tactics. Diba? I mean, tama sinabi mo, they were not ready for this. So clearly, there should have been either people who know how to deal with the situations, maybe veterans of Philippine Navy or now in commercial or civil society activities, or there should have been proper training. I don't know. Is it because nung process of getting permission from the government was taking so long and probably may kulang ng preparation? Kasi yun nga Kasi the message that is going down here is in a negative sense, dalawa, no? Now, one is China can just keep on pressing and pressing us until we'll just give up and make Kasi sarili natin bakuran yan eh. Natatakot na tayo umikot sa sarili natin bakuran. Medyo ibang klase ng intimidation yan. Or two, eto naman kasi mga to, nagmamaganda, yan tuloy, natawahan kayo. Alam mo naman yung ganun sasabihin ng mga pro-China and Duterte people. So ang sinasabi ko dito is, we have to have that presence of mind about the potential criticism that will come out after that incident. Kaya I'm not saying
Yes.
straight, but I could see why Commodore Tariela will immediately come out and say, no, 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 we were there. We were providing support. We wanted them to continue, but ultimately this was their call. You get what I'm saying? Kasi the optics is, I'm not sure it's helping our case. Parang nanalo
Tama yun.
to a certain degree
Tama
dyan.
yun, Christian, no? Pero sabi ko nga, sa monitoring ko,
Christian na naman. Sige, go
halos
ahead.
lahat ng balita, maliban sa mga trolls, no? Halos lahat ng balita positive eh. No? Nagulat nga ako doon sa na basically walang criticism masyado doon sa ship captain na nag-turn around, no? Dahil parang naunawaan nila yung sitwasyon ng isang private ship captain, no? Tingin ko yun yung strength at saka weaknesses nitong proyektong ito. Ito yung first time kasi na nagkaroon ng civilian convoy. Ito yung first time na nagkaroon ng partnership yung government, no, yung armed forces, tsaka yung civilian convoy. At siyempre sa simula ay pinipilit ng civilian convoy na may sarili silang mga barko. May sarili silang, ang gusto kasi nung simula ng Coast Guard, sumakay na lang lahat sa Coast Guard eh, no? Pero nung simula kasi bawal ang mga foreign correspondents. Bawal ang simultaneous telecast. Bawal ang sariling Starlink, no? Bawal, ang daming bawal eh. Ito yung first time na pinayagan lahat 'yan after several weeks of negotiations. Kaya medyo historic eh. At the end of the day, pinayagan yung mga foreign correspondents. Bagamat meron ng mga nag-back out sa kakahintay. Halimbawa, BBC, no? Reuters, Al Jazeera, The Guardian, marami nag-atrasa na sa kakahintay eh, bago sila maaprubahan. At hindi sila pwedeng too late na sumama, di ba? Kaya isa yun eh, siguro mga more than 30% doon sa mga nakalista ay umatras dahil ang tagal bago aprubahan yung mga foreign correspondents. Pero eventually pinayagan. Ikalawa, eventually pinayagan ang simultaneous telecast, no? Na hinihingi ng mga journalist dahil originally in the past, pwede ka mag-telecast from the port papunta or pabalik, hindi during the trip. Ngayon pinayagan eh. Kaya maraming first eh. Kaya kailangan mo maunawaan, Richard. Kaya may mga tension, may mga vacuum eh na nangyayari, no? Ngayon dahil sa nangyari, baka pwede na sa susunod, no, imbis na kumuha ka ng mga private boats, no, aside dun sa mga fishermen's boats, no, ay baka pwede mag-joint na yung Coast Guard at saka yung media, foreign media at saka yung atin ito, no? Pwede na sila magsama dahil yung dating mga restrictions ay nawala na, no? Na dati ay meron, no? Dati ay meron dahil unawain mo, siyempre kung private captain yan in a private boat, siyempre iba yung training niyan eh. Hindi yan Navy, hindi yan Coast Guard na battleship na papunta
iba yung
sa
rules of
giyera.
engagement, iba yung threshold
Yes.
they're willing to accept.
Kaya
Liability.
Kahit next time kumuha ka ng private vessel with a private captain, baka dumaan din sa ganung klaseng problema. Diba? Dahil ang obligasyon niya is to protect his private boat. No, hindi yan centralized command eh. Ngayon, kung yung mga restrictions ay natanggal na, baka pwede na ng mas unified command in the future. Halimbawa sa Scarborough, no, na mukhang pinagpaplanuhan ng atin ito dahil marami silang miyembro na fishermen doon. Sa kasi sa Palawan hindi masyadong marami yung miyembro ng atin ito. Sa Scarborough, sa Baho de Masinloc, medyo marami. At saka hindi ganun kalayo, medyo malapit, no? Yun yung kaya siguro yung mga lessons dito ay pwedeng to strengthen the next project. Halimbawa, kung matutuloy yung Baho de Masinloc, no, yung Scarborough project, no. Yung mga tingin ko yung isang pinag-uusapan, baka hindi na kinakailangan kumuha ng private boat at saka private captain. Mag-usap na lang, no, para pag private talaga kakabahan eh. Pag without water cannon ka na,
that's a very good
pag
point,
pinapaikutan ka na ng Chinese Navy, di ba? Ninervousin ka talaga eh. No? Hindi
Yeah.
mahirap naman kumuha ng Navy Navy captain na ilalagay mo sa private vessel. No? Baka hindi naman
Yun nga,
pumayag yung
hindi ka
may-ari.
pwede maglagay ng I don't know, taxi driver sa Ferrari Formula 1.
Yes.
I mean, no offense. I'm sure taxi drivers are fantastic guys,
Yes.
but iba to eh.
Yeah.
Ito ay war zone almost. Nakakatakot. At
Yes.
mo, pinakamalaking higanteng navy na inis sa Philippines. I mean, Rod, just my take on this issue, of course, katulad ng sinulat natin sa isang article natin is China is trying to regain yung strategic initiative because mukhang na-fluster talaga sila. Hindi na nila na-expect na isang Bongbong Marcos Jr. Well, obviously, we can debate about how much of this is Bongbong Marcos, but they didn't expect that under Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the Philippines would be this assertive. Yung aggressive transparency initiative ng Philippine Coast Guard, itong mga ramped up resupply missions ng Armed Forces of the Philippines, joint patrols with their partners, first ever joint aerial patrols with the United States, just after a joint naval patrol with Australia, calls for quadrilateral patrols, bringing in even the Indians and some of our other partners. So, nagsama-sama lahat yan. Meron pa yung EDCA aspect na pinag-usapan natin. And I said sometimes, this is also about China pressing and intimidating us sa West Philippine Sea. Para siguro, sabihin niya, pag-isipan niya yung gusto niya sa Taiwan, di ba? Pag manggugulo kayo dyan sa North, kakawain namin kayo dito. Di ba? I mean, so China
Yes.
really desperate now to regain the strategic initiative because we really surprised them, or rather Marcos Jr. really surprised them because he's essentially Aquino, in a way, Aquino on steroids, right? Like things that Aquino would have loved to do later on. Of course, syempre, kakalabas lang after Aquino lang. Like you could imagine now what Aquino started, BBM is pushing it to the next level. Itong pagbisita niya sa Indo-Pacific Command, all of these big things happening here and there. But Ronald, having said all of those things, obviously the question I raise here is this. Clearly, China is not just testing the Philippines, it's also testing the United States. Ang tanong ngayon is, anong basa natin sa response ng US aside from their typical response na any armed attack will invoke mutual defense treaty. But clearly, hindi tanga mga Chinese. They're not going to do an armed attack, but they'll do anything short of an armed attack. They're going to water cannon us, they're going to intimidate us. So that's where we are right now.
Ang isang maganda rito sa mga pangyayari, in spite of the scaling up ng harassments, in spite of the scaling up of aggression, in spite of the scaling up ng presence nila sa West Philippine Sea, ay hindi humingi ng tulong ang Pilipinas sa kahit sino. Diba? Inabsorb natin yung brand pero hindi tayo humingi ng tulong. No, yun yung isang maganda dito sa nangyari. No? At hindi tayo nag-scaling up ng ating sariling military presence. No? Talagang inabsorb natin. Siyempre, yung medyo masakit dahil nagulpi ka. Parang FPJ ba? Yung mga pelikula ng FPJ, nagpapagulpi muna, di ba? Sa kwan. Kaya ganun yung nangyari dito, no? Pero hindi tayo humingi ng tulong, ha? Wala tayong hiningi. Nagbigay ng statement yung mga EU, yung US, no? Iba pang mga bansa dito sa nangyari, condemning it. No, nabasa ko nga kanina yung sa EU at saka yung sa US yung statement nila tungkol dito sa harassment.
Sweden, which is 300 years of neutrality. Of course, now they're joining NATO.
Yes.
But this is a country which is very careful about what they say. Kung pansin nyo, tahimik ang Sweden before on many issues around the world because yun they have centuries. Parang silang Switzerland, diba? And now, of course, they're joining NATO because of Russia. That's a long discussion. But that's my point, Ronald. I completely agree with you na maganda na we are reminding the world that this is our issue. This is not US-China rivalry. This is about us protecting yung sarili natin bakuran. But the reality is that Chinese are treating this as part of a bigger fight with China and as a part of intimidation of the rest of ASEAN. Because over the past 24 hours, ang dami kong pinost about nasaan, kung nasaan ang Pangulo, nasaan ang ASEAN. Not a single ASEAN country or not the ASEAN as a whole has said anything about, never mind this incident, but 5 or 6 other incidents throughout the year. The bullying that is happening to us. And kaya nga ako, I love ASEAN.
Tama ka, Richard.
Ano bang ambag nila ngayon kung they're not gonna
Tama ka, Richard. Medyo tahimik yung ASEAN, no? Parang yung Vice President, tahimik, no? Diba? Di mo napansin? Parang
next episode din. Pero that's a good segue. Yeah. Papunta na tayo dyan.
Parang yung Vice President, napakatahimik tungkol dito.
ASEAN policy.
Oo. Kaya, alam mo, isang bahagi ng scaling up, sabi ni AFP Chief of Staff Browner, nung in-interview siya doon sa BRP Sierra Madre, sabi niya, grabe, ang daming Chinese vessels dito. No? Mukhang naghahanda sila para dito sa pagdating ng Christmas convoy. Yun ang sabi ni Bronner, ha? Mukhang naghahanda sila.
Nakikinig sila sa mga
Oo,
vlogs natin.
mukhang naghahanda sila. Ba't ano na paghahandaan nila sa Christmas convoy? No? Less than 100 NGOs, sectoral leaders, no? Ano makakatakutan mo ron? May mga dalang mga regalo, no? Ano makakatakutan mo ron? Pero yun ang sabi ni Browner, kaya natawa nga ako, no? Ang dami.
Pero
Mukhang
Ronald,
naghahanda
wala
sila
kasi
rito
silang
para sa Christmas convoy, sabi niya.
alam mo, Ronald, wala naman civil society in China in a strict sense of the word because they're not allowed, really, di ba? In the China,
Yes.
total domination of the society. Kaya siguro wala silang konsepto ng independent, autonomous civil society action, especially on very sensitive issues like this, no?
Oo.
So again, I don't mean offense to some real NGOs in China trying to survive
Yeah.
despite the dictatorial situation, but I'm saying as far as the state is concerned in China, they don't understand what's an independent autonomous. Hindi nila maintindihan isang Ronald Llamas na wala na sa gobyerno na matagal pero ang daming hanash, di ba? At hindi nila alam ng gobyerno, minsan napipilitan.
Parang kwan lang ako,
Tayo.
parang Richard Haydarian, nanonood sa gilid-gilid, no?
Ayan na naman.
Mga laos na,
Pero,
kaya nagpa-podcast na lang, no?
pero may masabi.
No?
Oo, pero may masabi.
Kwento na lang dito, pamarites-marites na lang, dahil laos na eh. No? Mga laos na eh, no? Pero alam mo, Richard, isang elephant in the room, no? Ang audience ng China ay yung sarili nilang tao. This is a new kind of Chinese nationalism, no? Na hinahanda nila for Taiwan, no? Natapos na nila, tingin nila yung Hong Kong. Pero marami silang economic problems eh. So it's not just about a new revitalized Chinese nationalism. No, this is a distraction away from their problems, no? This is a new kind of wolf diplomacy. Dahil nung sinimulan yung world diplomacy, hindi pa masyadong ganun kalalaki ang mga problema inside China. Ngayon malalaki. Not only economics, not only demographics, no? Kundi mga simpleng mga problema like floods, no? Binabaha ang Beijing, binabaha ang mga key cities ng China, no? Nararamdaman nila ngayon yung climate change. So ang dami nilang problema at doon sila kinakabahan. If they're middle class, no, in the hundreds of millions, ay magsisimulang magduda sa leadership ng Communist Party. Kung yung middle class nila in its hundreds of millions, 400 to 500 million, ay magiging disenchanted with the leadership of Xi Jinping na wala na siyang i-blame na ibang faction dahil almost total yung kanyang kapangyarihan. Yun yung problema pag wala ng ibang paksyon na masisisi. Lahat, the buck stops with you. No? Kaya, tingin ko isang strategy
nila yung
ito.
mga foreign countries, di ba? That's what they're
Yes. Doon nila dinadivert yung posibleng disenchantment at galit. Di ba? Dito. Pero, alam mo, mga pragmatic din itong mga Chinese. Hindi naman itong mga bobo. Medyo hindi rin sila tatawid doon sa linya eh. Yung military na border, hindi sila tatawid dyan eh. Kaya ang kinuha nila, scaling up, harassment, no?
But
pero
just below the threshold.
Ang habol nila, tayo mismo umatras, halimbawa sa BRP Sierra Madre. Tayo na mismo umatras. Hindi nila papapasukin yung supply, hindi nila sasakalin nila yan. No? Para tayo na mismo ang kusang umatras. Duda ako, if ever they will use military action against a rusty warship na posibleng mag-provoke ng mutual defense treaty. No, ako tingin ko wala pa sa perspective nila.
But again, Ronald, but our question is, yun nga like, okay, they're not gonna cross the Rubicon, but short of crossing the Rubicon, they can do 10,000 horrible things to the Philippines. That's the point eh. So para sa akin, okay yung
i-drain nila yung ilog sa ilalim ng Rubicon.
they're gonna build a dam on the other side of the Rubicon River and then
i-drain nila yung ilog.
That's my point eh. I mean, that's a very good analogy, right? Like the Chinese
exactly. I agree with you.
They will drain the Rubicon and make 3 gorges dam on the
I agree with you, no?
So hindi pwede yung style ng US ngayon na parating i-remind ng China, wag niyong ng Pilipinas wag niyong attack. Syempre, China, tanga, pero ang dami pa na. So I think there's a lot of challenge for US and the Philippines to figure out how they respond to this increasingly almost hindi na siya gray zone magba-black zone na siya almost, but just short of arm attack siya. So 50 shades kasi yan, di ba? But I want to also before we go to the next part, because I want to talk about Vietnam, because from what I understand, President Marcos Jr. will be visiting that country quite soon. from what I understand. And currently, President Xi Jinping of China is actually in Vietnam, and Vietnam is like the nation of the year. No, it's a country that hosted both Biden and now Xi Jinping within a single year. No other country has been treated as importantly. And the thing is, the Philippines is also courting Vietnam. And if there's one ASEAN country na pinakamalapit sa atin, yung kanilang threat perception sa China dahil sa kanilang 1,000 years of struggle, supposedly, well, parang where's the love? Kasi Ronald, naalala mo 2 years ago nung kinawawa ng China yung mga Vietnamese fishermen sa Paracels, nag-release ng statement ng Department of Foreign Affairs essentially expressing solidarity with Vietnam. Alam din natin na throughout the decade, you were in the Aquino administration, the Vietnamese tried to build some sort of a semi-alliance with us, right? And eventually they did piggy bank on our arbitration award. So parang ang point ko is kumita sila sa relationship natin at nagparamdam sila na there's more to this relationship, but they're kind of also missing in action. I mean, I cannot expect much from Malaysia, to be honest.
Alam mo,
Diba?
Richard,
Yeah,
very pragmatic din ang Vietnam eh. Very pragmatic din sila. Di ba ba?
Parang
Nandun
Chinese.
sila sa UNCLOS eh. Nag-observe sila. No? Kausap, sabi nga nila sa akin eh, nung nasa UNCLOS kami, pag nanalo kayo dyan, susunod kami. No? Magpa-file din kami ng case. Nung na-meet ko sila,
Diba? They let us on eh.
Nung na-meet ko sila 2 years ago, sabi ko, akala ko magpa-file kayo ng case pag nanalo kami. Ang sabi nila sa akin, high ranking Communist Party leader ng Vietnam. Sabi nila sa akin, hindi, okay na, panalo na kayo eh. No? O susunod na lang kami sa victory nyo. Alam mo, bahagi ng growth, bahagi ng growth ng Vietnam ay yung trade nila with China. May love-hate relationship ang Vietnam with China eh. Di ba? They've been at war for 1,000 years. They've been at war. Pero nung pumunta ako sa kanila nung 2013, tinanong ko para kausapin yung kanilang defense chief, yung kanilang foreign minister at yung kanilang intelligence chief, no? Kasama ko pa nga si Bali Gutierrez no? Nung pumunta ako, undersecretary ko pa siya noon eh. Ang sabi
lang, work pala sa nga pala.
Yeah. Undersecretary ko with Chito Gascon, no? Vince Dizon, no? Ang sabi sa akin ng mga Vietnamese, sabi niya, especially during the worst of times, nung may gera sila, they were in recent history, meron silang 2 gera with China. Di ba, in-invade pa ang Vietnam ng China noon over
1979 and 1980.
Diba? Over Cambodia. Tapos may nangyari pang incident sa Spratlys
1980
na more than 80 Vietnamese Navy ang napatay ng China, no? So, yung tension nila mas matindi sa tension natin. Pero hindi yung kanilang backdoor, yung kanilang bilateral, hindi nawawala. Meron pa rin silang party-to-party exchanges at saka military-to-military exchanges.
Right.
So the bilateral remains, even especially during the worst of times. Actually, nung pumunta ako sa kanila noong 2012, 2013, nalaman ko noon na meron pala silang code of conduct with China sa South China Sea, between them. Siyempre, hindi yan nasusunod. Pero imagine, meron silang code of conduct na hindi maaprubahan sa ASEAN. No? Kaya binanggit ko yun sa cabinet at that time. No? So, ibig sabihin, meron silang love-hate relationship. Perhaps it's not that accurate. No? Na may mga times na very intense ang kanilang trade. May mga times na very intense ang kanilang gera. Actually, gera, invasion, no? All-out war yung nangyari, no? Sa kanila. Pero halimbawa ngayon, nakikinabang sila sa trade with China. No? Kaya
I mean, much of what their export is based on Chinese capital investment.
Yes.
Pero
ganun din ang India
made in China na ginawang made in Vietnam. I mean, yeah.
Pero ganun din ang India. Meron din silang halos 2 beses nagkaroon din ng gera ang India with China. Pero malaking bahagi ng pharmaceutical ng India ay dependent on China. Di ba? Malaking bahagi ng kanilang IT is in relation with China. Kahit intense yung kanilang away sa kanilang borders, no? So yun yung iba sa ating relasyon, no? sa China. Pero baka kailangan kasi itong mga nagsisigaw ng suporta sa atin ay they have to put their money where their mouth is. No, halimbawa, we still have to really feel the impact ng kanilang economic aid at saka investments na sinasabi nila, na pinopromesa nila.
Sorry, Ron, I have to cut it because ang dami, kanina kahapon pa tinatanong sa akin. In fact, interestingly, when I was in Singapore the other week, nasa lobby bigla, muntik ako nag-fanboy, yung founder ng Nvidia, ito yung pinaka-biggest semiconductor producer, si Jensen Huang. Ito yung naka-leather jacket parate. Favorite mo yan, dapat may friends kayo, di ba? And there are plans for Nvidia, in addition to Apple, to move more of their production to Vietnam. So ang nangyari ngayon sa Vietnam is they're using their sister-to-sister communist cultural ties to China to make sure things are an even keel. At the same time, they're getting everything from the West, high-end semiconductors.
Diba?
And at the same time, quietly, they're getting things from Russia, nung mga weapon systems and all, na kasi Cyrillic yung kanilang weapon system. Punta ka sa isang fighter jet sa Vietnam. Russian, Cyrillic, di ba? So, like, you have like 3 hands getting from everyone. Like,
parang India.
Vietnamese, India
Diba?
pa,
Parang
Japan
India.
pa,
Huh?
Japan. So, like, that's my point. They have like 10 hands getting from all sides while protecting their national interest. I don't want to be fanboy of Vietnam, but I'm not a fan of their communist system, but I'm a fan of their nationalism. I'm the fan of their sense of nationhood, their sense of strategic autonomy. Sobrang dynamic talaga itong bansa na ito. They made mistakes in the past nung in-invade nilang Cambodia, kinawawa sila ng buong mundo. So they learned their lesson not to rely on any foreign power because the Russians abandoned them by the 1980s. Bugbog na bugbog sila sa Afghanistan.
Galit na galit yung Juan. Kausap ko yung defense minister, sabi nila, huwag kang magtiwala dyan sa mga superpower. No, pinapasok namin yung Russia sa Cam Bay. Binigyan namin ng base yung Russia sa aming Cam Bay. Nung nilusob kami ng China, they never lifted a finger to help us. No? Galit na galit sila. Akala nila poprotektahan sila ng
Ronald,
Russia.
ingat ka sa mga sinasabi mo. May mga ka-DDS tayo dyan na tuwan-tuwa sa mga sinasabi mo ganyan. Wag na. Tapon na natin. No, ang point doon is hindi mo itapon yung alliances mo. Develop ka ng cross-cutting alliances. Hindi lang multiple friends ka na hindi ka 100% in each of them, right? It's like 50% here, 50% dyan, 50% dyan. It's like a diversified portfolio, mautak, hedging. Yan ang strategy ng Vietnam. Kaya hindi talaga pwede tayo purong US lang at purong mga Western partners. We have to go. I mean, ito yung sinabi ko. So kahapon na Ronald, marami naman tayong kaibigan. May mga bagong trolls at kaibigan na rin ako. So I said, in the past year alone, India, a non-aligned country, has done more for the Philippines in the West Philippines than entire ASEAN in the past decade. So tuwan-tuwa yung mga pro-Modi. And at the same time said, but I'm not a fan of the current government in India. Di galit na naman sila sa akin. But that's the point. I think India is a very good, interesting relationship we have to develop. Now, I think there's a lot that we share with that country.
Yes.
And they see us as a natural ally and partner in Southeast Asia. Very similar political systems, very similar history. At mayabang din tayo. Punta ka sa mga conferences, di ba, Ronald? Pinoy at Indian at Singaporean pinakamaingay pag Asian, di ba? Mga natural talaga tayong allies eh. May R&R na rin sila.
Napakadaldal, no? Parang Richard J. Darian yung mga yan, no?
Ronald, yun lang naalala ko actually. Di ba sabi mo kanina, di ba nagyabang ako na top 100 na ako sa Singapore. Number 1 na tayo, top 100 din tayo sa Spotify. And then sabi ko, sino kalaban natin sa Asia? Di ba I said Hong Kong and Singapore? And then at the back of my head, I forgot one big country. India. Hindi ko matalo-talo mga yan. Malakas talaga.
Yun talagang elephant in the room.
Oo, pare. Mekos-mekos yung mga yan.
Sa mga international conferences, yan ang lagi kong kadebate, mga Indians, no?
Grabe sila, pare. Ibang klase mga Indians sa kaibigan natin. Kaya, Mekos tayo dyan. Mahal ko. I feel very comfortable.
Pero kahit nangyayari yan, hindi ko naman sinasabi na kinakailangan din nating maging kasing pragmatic nila. Ang sinasabi ko lang, kailangan nating ayusin yung ating mga relasyon dito sa mga sumusuporta sa atin. Halimbawa, yung pinakamalaking Coast Guard vessel natin galing sa Japan, hindi yung tulong, binili natin yun, no? Baka naman yung susunod tulong, no? Lalo na sa Coast Guard na civilian, no?
Yeah, but that's good.
Mahirap naman yung, di ba? Yun yung kailangan natin gawin. So, halimbawa, bakit medyo may kaunting grudging respect ang China sa Vietnam at saka Indonesia? Dahil naipakita nila, they can stand to China din eh. Diba? Pinakita rin nila na hindi sila kayang ibuli ng basta-basta. Bago sila pumasok sa mga pragmatic relationships, no? Merong respect na hindi mo kami pwedeng ibuli, no? Hindi mo kami pwedeng ibuli. Lalo na ngayon yung Vietnam, ngayon yung pinaka-scaled up yung kanilang relasyon sa US. Diba? Ngayon pinaka-scaled up.
Comprehensive strategic partnership. They have it with China, with Russia, with US, and now with Japan. Nung isang sa Japan yung kanilang president giving a speech sa Japanese diet. Katulad ni Pinoy, yung boss mo. Yung nag-speech siya sa harap ng ano and supporting the Japan. So now yung new favorite ng Japan is Vietnam dito sa Southeast Asia. We're an old affair. We're an old fire, fuego. The new fuego now is Vietnam. No, I really appreciate this discussion. Ronald, yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, on this.
Ako lang panghuli Richard, no. Tingin ko itong mga events na ito, no, because somewhere along the way we lost our sense of nationhood. Somewhere along the way we lost track of our patriotism. No, somewhere along the way, di ba? Parang nawalan ng kahulugan yung ating pagiging Pilipino. Tingin ko sa mga panahong ito, this is the best chance para balikan yan to reinvent yung ating pagiging Pinoy, no? To rediscover yung ating unity. Halimbawa, nakakatuwa dito sa pinapanood natin na atin ito, Coast Guard, etc. Ito yung first time na nagkaroon sila ng unity. Hindi ito usapin ng mga political differences. Usapin ito ng pagiging Pinoy. Hindi ito yung xenophobic nationalism. It's a nationalism, no, laban sa invasion ng ating territory, no, ng ating EEZ, even our territorial waters. Dahil yung Chinese Navy nandun na sa hindi lang nasa EEZ nasa border na ng ating territorial waters at labas-masok na sila.
Bakuran talaga
so this is not naiiba ito Kaya this is a good a time para i-rediscover natin yung medyo nanghina or natatter na ating patriotism, yung ating sense of nation, no? Of course, kinakailangan dyan ng leadership. Kinakailangan dyan ng isang enlightened leadership. At kinakailangan dyan ng strong civil society. Ang sinasabi ko lang, perhaps those elements na nandito ngayon, kailangan din natin i-scale up. Para irespeto rin tayo ng mga nambubuli sa atin. Para irespeto rin tayo ng mga gustong tumulong sa atin. Paano naman tayo tutulungan kung yung ating mga sarili hindi natin kayang tulungan? Di ba? This new sense of nationhood, hindi yan magsisimula outside of us. It has to start inside of us. In our family, in our neighbors, in our community. No? Diyan magsisimula yan Yun ang nakikita kong kagandahan nitong civil society atin itong effort. No, na hindi dependent sa mga political parties, hindi dependent sa mga elites, hindi dependent sa mga taipans, kung hindi talagang grassroots based. No, yun yung
pero Ronald, sana next time medyo dependent for training kasi kailangan natin ng isang na handa sa ganitong sensitive at nakakatakot na operation.
Hindi naman yan mangyayari sa unang salvo
Exactly.
May learning curve yan May learning curve yan, no? Ang masama diyan kung hindi ka matututo sa simula, no? At tingin ko dito sa sa civilian mission ito na napapanood ko sa TV at nababasa ko sa diaryo, ay merong magandang kinabukasan.
Malayo ka sa nangyayari.
No, mukhang kinabukasan, no? Baka sa susunod sumama ka na diyan, Richard, no? Kaso baka lalong bombahin ang China pag nakita ka.
I'll go from my private jet on the direction.
Hindi, pwede ka
Andrew Tate.
Pwede ka mag-parachute sa BRP Sierra Madre, no? Galing sa isang F-16 fighter jet.
Correct. Gusto ko yan. No, thank you so much. I completely agree with you. No, that was exactly what I was expecting to hear, which is this is the first time. This is a very complicated operation. There was a lot of back and forth negotiation, but this is just the first. It's the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. Sabi nga ng mga Chinese natin kaibigan. Then may this be the first step in the Filipino people helping their government to uphold what is ours within sa loob ng ating bakuran. And you're absolutely right, Ronald. In fact, I had a discussion with some fellow millennial experts, na sabi ko, baka itong West Philippines talagang magiging springboard for rebirth of the Filipino nationalism, diba? In ways that Rizal and that generation was very much steeped in. Now, Ronald, on that note, alam ko nagiging emotional ka na. Let's keep that emotion kasi marami tayong pag-usapan in the next episode. Yes, MNI, Harry Roque, Badoy, Eric, Jay Sonza, yung favorite natin. Pag-usapan natin, malaki palang consultancy fee na. Para mali ang mali ang natin, mga sektor natin. Anyway, but before that, of course, if ASEAN was the silent element almost so far dito sa West Philippines Sea, may mas silent pa dyan, which is the Vice President of the Philippines and the whole Duterte clan about Kasi, just to be clear, yung mga nag-excuse na, oh, hindi, VP yan, syempre, she will have respect for the... Wait lang, ang dami ng stance sa Middle East, sa Gaza, kung ano-anong... Ito, sa sarili natin bakuran, wala pa silang stance. Kasi I was checking the Twitter account of the Vice President, last night. Mahuli niya yung mga bisita niya sa mga preso, ganon. And speaking of that, maybe you want to talk about ICC2 in the next episode. So thank you very much, Secretary Ronald Llamas. That was good discussion. I like it. Mahalaga yan. Siyempre, unang-una talaga parati sa ating West Philippines si atin to . God bless. Thank you very much.
Salamat din, Big R.
Salamat.